He wasn't much of a writer, that's for sure. His journal's empty.
My dad had just told me he was going to work for Halliburton, and how big they were and how they were there to help rebuild.
Somebody knew that they sent these wonderful men out there. How can they do that? These men went to do the right thing. So, bottom line, they were totally taken advantage of.
Well, I trusted the company. I trusted them. This is a Fortune 500 company. I just don't believe they would send me down a road that was closed or was going to have hostile activity for sure. That didn't even cross my mind.
And U.S. forces here are saying openly they're braced for more terror attacks, more bombings.
We had a significant anniversary, the fall of Baghdad. We had a Christian holiday, and they converged to create what was an obvious day of danger. Halliburton and KBR had news from multiple sources, including multiple sources in the military, that the roads that day were under active combat operations and were black, closed, and/or red. No civilians.
There were sitting ducks out there in military trucks on that day.
They told us we couldn't wear camouflage or anything that made us look like military. The point was clear that we were not soldiers and we were not to behave like soldiers.
He couldn't even wear a camouflage shirt on base, let alone driving a military fuel truck out in, the desert where there was a war around him.
Why would they send this convoy in camouflage trucks down that road in the middle of battle?
It's about contracts, I believe, fulfilling a contract and replacing us if we died. There's a lot of different contracts being offered out there, and Halliburton Root wants most of them. If they could have them all, they would take them all. And they wanted to continue doing business with the Army, whatever the risks were.
It was nothing but the money. There's no duty, honor, country among anyone at Halliburton, KBR.
Halliburton, KBR, some of these other firms over there are staying over there and continuing to make profits, big money, and people are just at the cost of human life.
Their contract with the Army provided them literally billions of dollars of revenue every year, that the contract profit and the contract profit that they made became more important than the lives of the men that they hired.
I think we're talking about what's right and the fact that you sacrificed our loved ones for your profit.
KBR kill, bag, and replace people. They tried to do it with us, and they killed my friends, as far as I'm concerned, and they tried to kill me. I know they know.
This is a case about Halliburton and KBR trying to make a profit at time of war and using civilians in an improper fashion.
Halliburton is in charge of seeing that these men and their employees are safe. Sent these men out on April 9th and they knew that there was more than a good chance that they would be killed.
When people talk about, they gave their lives or this thing, and I can assure you that they did not. They were stolen from them. They were screaming and didn't want to go. And there wasn't anything great or glorious about the whole obscene ordeal. They didn't die, they didn't pass away, they were murdered.
KBR got billions of dollars worth of contracts in Iraq without a bidding.
Halliburton got the government contract without competitive bidding.
In the case of Halliburton, most of the contracts they've received have been sole source contracts, which means they're either given the contract, it's just offered to them, or they're the only people that bid on it. A lot of federal officials will defend this, saying that this is the only company that could do the work.
Conservatives especially who favor a free market system should be outraged about the degenerate state of the lack of competition in defense industry.
Bunentine Greenhouse, a top contracting officer at the Army Corps of Engineers, alleges favoritism and rule-breaking.
I walked into a process that was corrupt, that was geared toward preferential treatment to KBR. KBR was pre-selected. The duration of the contract was predetermined. Most blatant abuse that I had experienced in my contracting career.
The American way is competition, and I cannot sufficiently stress that in defense industry, when it comes to the big programs, there's not competition. It's monopoly and cartel behavior. It is corrupt, it is corrupting, it is corrosive to our national defense.
When we showed up, there's nothing there. Our customer is a private coming off patrol who wants midnight chow, and we're there for him.
We're doing stuff that you'll never read about in the papers.
Everyone had to make a big adjustment over there. I helped with that.
We got 80,000 troops out of the sand in 3 months. It was awesome.
I'm Ian Dolan.
Angela Stevens.
Kirk Hansen. My name is Jay Patterson, and I'm proud to work for Halliburton.
My name's Ben Carter, and within the first week of being in Iraq, I knew that that wasn't going to be the company that I wanted to be with. Halliburton was hired to provide clean, safe cooking, cleaning, shower water for the military. One of Halliburton's employees saw something wiggling in the water in his toilet bowl. So I went and tested the water in our water storage tanks. There was no chlorine in them, none. The water we showered in every single day was extremely contaminated. And when I talk about contaminated water, I'm saying malaria, typhus, giardia, cryptosporidium. I mean, the list is really, really long.
Halliburton is accused by its own employees of exposing troops to contaminated water in Iraq.
When I tried to notify the troops that they may be exposed to a serious health risk, I was told that the military was none of my concern.
They were only concerned with making their profit and didn't care how it may affect the troops. Of the 67 water treatment plants that Halliburton run, 63 of them weren't providing safe water. And the Marines are showering in it every single day. Sorry. I was there to help them. There's a lot of soldiers over there. They might come home without a bullet wound, but there's a lot of them that are going to come home with pathogens in their blood because of Halliburton. And they don't even know to get tested for it unless somebody tells them. And I'm sure Halliburton is not going to be the company to tell them.
When I joined Halliburton, I knew I was going to work on some big things. We put out a few fires at work. Once ran into a small challenge of getting some supplies to our troops. But the biggest thing, serving our troops good old American food. So they'd feel just a little closer to home.
How come you don't go to the chow hall? How much time you spend online?
At least
an hour.
An hour for food?
Hour in the sandstorm for food.
Tell me about that line over there. What line am I looking at right now?
That line is for the chow hall, where you eat.
Several times, dining halls were attacked. All it takes is one Iraqi that's an insurgent, and because they knew what times we were going to eat every day, they knew when to expect to hit. And that happens because KBR won't go to a 24-hour feeding schedule where they just always have food ready. They won't do it because it saves them money. Because they get paid by how many soldiers they feed, not by how many soldiers they save.
Feeding the troops. The Pentagon has found some serious problems with Halliburton's work on that contract as well.
Pentagon auditors found that a Halliburton contract to provide food and housing for American troops had a staggering $1.8 billion in unsupported costs.
It was all a scam. Halliburton was charging $45 for a six-pack can of like Coke or Pepsi that they give us and the military free in the mess hall.
Now, these sodas were made right there in the desert. It's not as if they were brought over from the United States. These sodas were made with Arabic wraps, you know, Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, whatever, right there in the desert. So it's not as if they had an exorbitant transportation rate.
They had the little mobile units that we had to put our clothes in, like a net duffel bag. Halliburton charged the government $100 for every bag of clothes they washed.
Whenever we got our laundry back, it felt worse than when we turned it in. Everything was still grimy.